Rejected for the 98th time by Mike. I happily ran 3 laps around Mike's mansion. The servants thought I'd lost it from the shock, feeling sorry for me. But they didn't know that one more rejection from Mike would earn me 10 million. Mike, do you really not like me? I held the takeout chicken soup, pretending I made it myself, giving him a longing look. There he was, tall and handsome, with the looks of a movie star. My so-called fiancé and the president of Q Group. Rich, and a player. Engaged to me, but always with other women. Facing my 99th confession, he frowned in annoyance. Monica, no matter how many times you ask, my answer is the same. I watched him expectantly. As soon as he said those 3 words, I'd be free. The seconds ticked by. Holding the soup, I could hardly contain my excitement. At the 5th second, the handsome man finally said those 3 words, I don't like you. At that moment, I had never found words so wonderfully sweet. I cried, but inside, I was laughing. Still, I had to keep up appearances. I conjured all my sad memories just to not laugh out loud in front of Mike. Goodbye, Mike. I left the soup down with a heartbroken look, but internally, I was overjoyed. Your bank account has been credited with 10 million. In the bar bathroom, I fixed my makeup in the mirror. The look was too perfect to fake. But I had no choice. My new target, Chris the school bully, liked this look. His first love treated him as a backup, so he found someone like me as a stand-in. But now that his first love was back, Chris regretted it. I became a laughing stock at school. They said Chris only treated me well because I was a substitute. Any self-respecting person should know their place and leave early. But getting dumped by the bully again would earn me another 10 million. How can someone abandon money for dignity? So, I retouched my makeup, making myself look pitiful. Then I pushed open the private room door, and everything went silent. The bully and his first love sat together. I wore the pale makeup and the same dress Chris had given me, just like his first love. Even the hairstyle was Chris's preference. On my face was the perfect mix of shock, sadness, and heartbreak. So, I'm really just a stand-in, huh? Chris looked a bit panicked, but his first love tugged his sleeve and softly asked, Chris, who's this? The panic vanished from Chris's face, a classmate. Perfect. The 99th time. I tore off the white dress and left in tears. Sadness, I faked. Happiness, that was real. I earned another 10 million. Now, having pocketed 20 million, I relaxed at home binge-watching shows. I'm Monica. After my dad got sick, the family went bankrupt, and I was left alone. I accidentally bound to a system. If rejected by trashy men 99 times, I'd get 10 million. Only a fool wouldn't jump at this. So without waiting for the system to finish, I signed the contract right away. Money's a must. Men? They're just illusions. But before I could fully relax, I got 2 calls. The first from Mike. His voice as chilly as ever, remember to take your stuff from the house, don't be a nuisance hero, then toss it. Hung up, blocked. The second call. Chris, don't skip school because of me. I cleaned my ear, glancing at the system's next target, Chris's rival, Jasper. The sole heir of J Group, the basketball team's star player. Rivaled with Chris since childhood. This afternoon, they were having a basketball face-off. Fiddling with my freshly done nails, what time's the game? The other end silent for a few seconds, a bit irritated, you coming to watch me play? Before I could answer, he continued, fine, come on over, I'll save you a front row seat. A bit of payback for the times we've spent. I rolled my eyes, barely holding back an insult. Gotta keep this guy around. I threw out all my white clothes, picking a body-hugging black outfit. Curves in all the right places. Nails freshly painted in pink and black. Sassy with a touch of desire. He liked the damsel in distress act to win men over. I preferred black, mysterious, dangerous. Applying lipstick, I watched myself in the mirror. Wavy hair replaced my straight locks, lazy yet chic. A photo of Jasper lay nearby. I picked it up, staring into the mirror. So if he betrays me, he'll auto-bind to the system, right? Silence. No one answered. But I grinned, leaving a lipstick mark on the photo. Let the fun begin. At a university, the basketball game started. But I ran into a minor hiccup. Didn't know Q Group was sponsoring the game. I didn't expect to bump into Mike. Dressed in a black suit, he sat in a sleek black Bentley, listening to his assistant's report. Could faintly hear familiar phrases. As I strutted by in heels, he turned, frowning and calling out, "Monica." I didn't stop. Further ahead, bodyguards blocked me. "Miss Monica, Mr. Mike wants you to come over." I turned, locking eyes with the man not far off. Once, I'd obey him without question. One signal, and I'd go running. But now? Couldn't even be bothered to act. I flipped him off, kicked a bodyguard on my way. Mike watched, a deep frown etched on his face. Inside the basketball court, the two campus heartthrobs were facing off. The place buzzed with excitement. The moment I appeared, gasps filled the arena. Chris silently looked over at me. Clueless sidekicks greeted me, "Here." Nudging Chris, "Your girl's looking good today." Chris's face darkened, but he didn't deny it. His first love, lips trembling, tearily ran off. Chris gazed at me, focus on my hands. He reached out to me and said, "All right, give me the water and enjoy the game yourself. Stop bothering me." But I didn't give it to him. Instead, I tilted my head and looked at him. "You're blocking my view of the men." Chris furrowed his brows slightly and followed my gaze. Jasper stood about 10 feet away, wearing a blue jersey, tall with long legs. The two made eye contact across the air. Jasper let out a light scoff, his gaze wild and arrogant. Chris suddenly threw the basketball in his hand with a swipe and glared at me angrily. "Are you here to give Jasper water?" I found it amusing. "Does who I give water to have anything to do with you?" Chris fell silent, his sullen eyes filled with hostility. The whole basketball game was, well, extremely exciting. He played like an angry lion, with no regard for rules or teamwork. Just focusing everything on Jasper. But Jasper wasn't a pushover. He dribbled the basketball and let out a whistle in my direction. "I won this game, wanna watch a movie with me?" I twirled my curls, looking relaxed, "Sure." Chris got even angrier. All his life, he'd never been humiliated like this. Because even if he used me as a stand-in, he hadn't formally broken up with me. So technically, I was still his girlfriend. Only he could betray me. I wasn't allowed to ditch him. The basketball court turned into chaos. Chris grabbed Jasper by the collar, veins bulging on his neck. "You dare touch my woman?" Jasper sneered, full of provocation. "Why wouldn't I? I'm not stuck on old flames or anything." Thud. The basketball hit the ground as Chris swung a punch at Jasper, fast and fierce. Jasper didn't hold back, retaliating with a punch. I watched the scuffle not far away, resting my chin on my hand. Sighed. What's the point? "Chris, don't block my way to earn money." I got up, walking over in my high heels. Unexpectedly, someone tripped me. The high heels wobbled, and I was about to hit the ground. But someone caught me around the waist. For a moment, the familiar scent of tobacco hit my nose. Annoying. I sobered up instantly, frowning at the man before me. The two fighting not far away stopped and looked at us. One was standing with even more hostility in his eyes. The other was crouched, a bloody lip, but still as arrogant as ever. Both looked at me. Mike held me around the waist and lifted me in his arms. He glanced at everyone around, then his eyes met Chris and Jasper's. He coolly withdrew his gaze and looked at me, a dangerous glint in his eyes. I lay lazily in his arms. Not looking at anyone. Boring. All three guys have gathered around now. Chris's face was full of anger as he glared at Mike. "Who are you?" He stepped forward to stop him, but the bodyguards were faster. Mike narrowed his dark eyes. His natural authoritative aura was intensely oppressive. Whispers filled the surroundings. He shot a cold glance at Chris. Just one look. No answer. Or rather, he didn't think it's worth answering. Because to him, both Chris and Jasper were just kids. He looked down at me. As arrogant and confident as ever, you've gone through quite the trouble to get my attention. I lazily let go of my curls, looking up at him. Mike, if I remember correctly, we've been done for a while, right? Getting your attention? I chuckled. My brightly painted nails lightly scratched his chest. A smile filled with coldness and disdain. You've got some nerve. I pushed his chest away and flipped out of his arms. The high heels landed steadily on the ground. I didn't look at Mike again. What did he say when my family went bankrupt? He doesn't associate with failures. So even if I confessed 99 times, he never said yes once. When everything's fine, it's like we're a perfect match. When it's not, I'm just a failure. Well, Mike, to me, you're only worth $1 million. Mike's face turned completely dark. For the first time, the cold and noble president showed emotion. Quite rare. I stood tall, leaving everyone behind. Chris watched me steadily. Like a little wolf pup, ready to devour me. He gritted his teeth. Was he always around before me? That's a good question. I stopped, turned around and beckoned him over in front of everyone. He's tall, looking down from above. His eyes stormy with building emotions. But he restrained himself. Bent down slightly toward me. Like a gentleman, a gentle boyfriend. Reluctant to let his girlfriend strain her neck, but I knew his affection was only about controlling me. He could use me. But I could never be disloyal to him. I hooked his neck, pulling him close. Our breath intertwined. His eyes shocked. His ears turned red. On the other side, the upright, cold-tempered man pressed his thin lips. His deep, inky eyes swirling with conflict. I hooked Chris's neck with one hand. My eyes darted to Mike not far away. Chris, know what? I paused, smiled charmingly. My voice soft and smooth, like a lover's whisper. Yet the words struck hard. I smirked. You're just the stand-in. The basketball game ended. It wasn't the two campus heartthrobs that caught attention, but me. The CEO of Q Group flew into a rage for me, carrying me away. That made the headlines of entertainment news for 3 days straight. The buzz didn't die down. People even dug up my past as the former Monica heiress. They envy my life. Even after bankruptcy and setbacks, I still lead an enviable life. After all, any of those men in the photos can outshine the ordinary. I put away the tablet. No longer interested in the outside news. Sunlight streamed through the windows onto the floor-to-ceiling window. A dash of golden light fell on me. I raised my hand to feel the warmth. Footsteps approached behind me. A familiar scent again. A man's tall silhouette loomed over. His voice annoyed. Why aren't you wearing shoes? I turned around and looked at him. Mike, you don't want to pull the keeping a mistress card, do you? He already had me locked up for 3 days. This psycho. When his possessiveness kicks in, he's a madman. Isn't it? He raised an eyebrow slightly. You used to like me so much. Don't you like it now that you have a chance to be close? I laughed out loud. Barefoot, I stepped on the floor and didn't hold back any compliments. You're really sick, Mike. You didn't cherish it when you had it. Regret it after losing it. What a problem. He wasn't even angry. With his long, jade-like fingers, he gently untied his tie. A servant came over to take his suit jacket. Mike waved his hand and the servants withdrew. The room was left with just the two of us again. Barefoot, I watched as he held a blanket, crouched in front of me, his rough fingertip hooked around my ankle. In a voice neither warm nor cold, he said, It's getting chilly in the fall, you get cold easily, don't always walk around barefoot. So he remembered my cold condition. But it's because of him I'm like this. I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile, watching this high and mighty man bow down and cover my feet. How ironic. Mike, I called his name casually. A player's comeback story is pretty lame. You're not thinking about chasing me again, are you? His hand paused. I lifted my leg, withdrawing it from his grip, and lightly stepped on his fine tailored suit pants. The man's breathing suddenly deepened. I poked absent-mindedly, Mike, you can't like me. Nightfall came. The last bit of sunset faded away, and silence engulfed us. The man's breaths grew heavier. He gripped my mischievous ankles suddenly, pulling me down. I lost my balance and fell into his arms. Our eyes met. He held onto my waist, his body temperature rising, breaths thickening. There was an undercurrent flowing, but he didn't touch me, he simply held my waist, firm muscles making it uncomfortable. I couldn't push him away. After a while, he finally let me go, a sigh escaping into the wind. Whether you like it or not, it's not up to you. As he finished speaking, the lights came on. Servants started bringing dinner in. Mike let me go. Let's eat first. But he didn't let me touch the ground, carrying me straight to the dining table. Unlike the exquisite dishes of the past, today's food lacked visual appeal. It didn't look like it came from a 5-star chef. I glanced down at the big hand gripping my waist, noticing a burn that hadn't been treated. Mike, holding me with one hand, scooped up a spoonful of soup in silence. I had no idea if it tasted good. He cooled it and fed it to me. Back then, he never bothered to look at me, but now his eyes were full of expectation. Yet inside, I felt nothing. You know what? Refusing the 99th proposal isn't the end of the mission. On the contrary, it was the beginning. From the day Mike rejected me for the 99th time, no matter how good he was to me, I wouldn't be moved. I rudely rejected everything, including the soup he fed me. The man, once so noble and proud, had a flash of disappointment in his eyes. But he said nothing, raising his hand to let the servant clean up the mess. If you don't like it, we'll make more, no need to get angry. Mike, I looked up at him, eyes full of disdain. You had 99 chances and didn't cherish a single one. Night fell. Once again, the servants brought a new meal. A maid, a little disgruntled, said, "The evening meals are all cooked by Sir himself. If you don't like it, there's no need to ruin it, it's a waste of his intentions." Outside, a full moon slipped behind the clouds. I looked back at the maid, my gaze frosty. "Is it your place to meddle?" The maid's face froze, her neck stiffening. "Without Sir, you're nothing. What are you so proud of?" I looked her way again. I remembered this maid. On the 65th proposal to Mike, I made a special meal but waited all evening just for mockery from her instead of Mike. They, with Mike's tacit consent, tossed my cooking to the dogs, telling me I was delusional. A fallen phoenix worse than a chicken. How could high and mighty Mike marry a bankrupt Monica? Resting my chin in my hand, I told her, "Thanks for reminding me. With Mike, I can do whatever I please." The maid got dismissed. More than that, every former servant who had mocked or belittled me was replaced. I watched a newbie timidly bring me a blanket and couldn't help but laugh. I don't bite. The newbie, startled, looked like she might cry. "Sir said," she stammered, "if anyone upsets Miss, they'll be let go. Miss Monica, I didn't mean to." Lazily slouched on the couch, I muttered, "I think your boss is the one who should go." The servant trembled in fear, nodding for her to leave. How boring. No one to talk to. Barefoot, with a thick carpet Mike laid under me, I twirled my feet watching out the window. If no one's coming to save me, I'll just escape on my own. Outside held only emptiness, a lone full moon growing brighter. After our last encounter, Mike and I hadn't seen each other for 7 days, yet he still kept me here, not letting me step outside the villa, though he hadn't taken my phone. If he did, I wouldn't last a day. Bored, I scrolled my phone. Chris was messaging me every day. I know I was wrong. "When are you coming back? Give me another chance." He sent a video, running through the rain across the field where we first met, calling my name, apologizing. Again and again, he lowered himself, but I replied to none. Jane also texted, begging me to look back at Chris if I forgave him. She promised to apologize and admit she spread the rumors of imitation. But what's the use? The hurt was from Chris. So, I chose to ignore it. Forgiveness? That's for God. But then Chris's video call came through. Bored, I picked up, but I stayed silent. Chris was drunk. In the shaky footage, I could vaguely see a delicate side profile. Her eyes were watching the scene with distaste. Chris saw my face. His eyes immediately turned red. What's so good about older men? He didn't get a response from me. He kept drinking, and I realized how painful it was to be someone's stand-in. He wobbled the camera back at me. Will you come back? I'll do anything. Please, don't. He couldn't finish his sentence. A shadow fell beside me. Mike, who I had been in a cold war with for 7 days, suddenly appeared and snatched the phone from my hand. Right in front of the camera, facing Chris. His handsome face darkened like it could drip water. Too bad for you. She's mine, he declared and pulled me in for a forceful kiss. The call disconnected automatically. I was furious and tried to push Mike away. But he was relentless. Impossible to push away. No matter how hard I tried. I bit down hard. That familiar taste of blood spread in my mouth. He still wouldn't let go. Kept kissing. Traveling lower. Disgusting. Everywhere his fingers touched felt repulsive. I suddenly froze. Just stared at Mike. He felt it was pointless and let go. A streak of vibrant red was left on my lips. Ambiguous and provocative. Beautiful, like some sort of spirit. But I knew he'd once been poison. Even after I bit him, he wasn't mad. His long fingers gently brushed my lips. I'll give you an answer tomorrow, Monica. You're mine. The next day. It was early, yet the villa was bustling. I stood at the second-floor window, watching the world outside. A red carpet stretching tens of meters. Roses flown in from Bulgaria. Flowers, wine. The servants were setting up the villa in an orderly manner. So luxurious, anyone might think it was a proposal scene. I lazily pulled my gaze back and looked at the maids behind me. Your sir sure is dull. The maid kept her head down. Miss Monica, sir asked that you wear these to tonight's banquet. She waved a hand, and a group of people filed in. From head to toe, all sorts of luxury items. Every single one extravagant. Dazzling to the eye. The most breathtaking was a white wedding dress. Designed by the British royal family's exclusive designer. A global limited edition. Meant to signify the only love of a lifetime. For the 32nd time, I had shown this wedding dress picture to Mike, saying, if we ever got married, I'd love to wear this dress for him. How did he reply back then? Hopeless dream. The maids dressed me up in the wedding dress. A top team of stylists, flown in from abroad, did my hair and makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. A kind of beautiful decay. Watering a wilted flower, would it help? I waved everyone away. The moon outside the full-length window rose again, marooning my wedding dress in its glow. I took off my heels. Barefoot on the floor, I thought, I look so good in a wedding dress. There was no response. I sighed, you know, when a girl is mad, there's no making her happy again. The moonlight flowed, silent and quiet. I glanced back one last time. Threw the heels aside and started walking downstairs. The villa was lively. They were all envious of me. The evening breeze was slightly cool. Mike came up behind me. In a well-cut custom suit, he looked as elegant and noble as a young gentleman. His eyes fell to my feet. No shoes again? I ignored him. In the center of the yard, there was a pond. Moonlight rippling across its surface. I stirred the moonlight with my bare feet, frustrated. Mike pulled me into his arms. In a husky voice, he asked me, "Don't like it?" I watched the disturbed moonlit pond, feeling quite happy. Even with Mike holding me, I didn't find it bothersome. I let him dry off my feet in his embrace. "Monica, if you say you don't like it, I'll remove it all. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." I kicked him away. Suddenly, music started playing. The projection in front of the villa automatically played a video. Mike had compiled all the times I confessed to him. The first time, in the pouring rain, I asked, "My family went bankrupt, I lost my father, but I still like you." Yet, he left me waiting all night. The second time, I spent my first earnings from a part-time job to buy his favorite tie. "Mike, this is my first paycheck, it means so much. Mike, I like you." The tie ended up in the trash. The 18th time. "Mike, I won't become a burden, I'm working hard. Look, I got first place, I like you." The certificate was torn to shreds. The 42nd time. "Mike, you're sick, I'll take care of you, I'll learn to make chicken soup. Mike, I like you." The soup was spilled. The 75th time. "Mike, today they asked me, I'm supposed to be your fiancé, why are there rumors with others? But Mike, I still trust you, I like you yet." He made me wait over and over. The 99th time. "Mike, do you really not like me?" "Monica." The music stopped, and the video ended. Mike stood behind me. All the things I'd confessed to him about were neatly presented before me. The way he looked at me was deeply loving. 99 times confessed, I'm answering you now, okay? I stayed silent. The moonlight flowed quietly. He laid everything he owned in front of me. "Monica, your family may have gone bankrupt, but you still have me. You're not my burden. From now on, I'll wear your tie to work every day. My money is yours, and what you earn is still yours." The soup was delicious, but Monica, cooking is too tiring. From now on, I'll cook for you. I'll practice my skills well. I'll only like you and no one else. I like you. Only you. Monica, 99 times, 999 times, 9,999 times. I will always like you. A cool touch dropped onto my hand, a huge ring. Worth well over 10 million. A tall, handsome man kneeled on one knee. "Would you give me a chance?" The villa became lively once again. Stylists continued working on my look. The moonlight outside was shining even brighter. The makeup artist put an expensive necklace around my neck. "Miss Monica, I'm so envious. You've got a man who truly loves you. So romantic, he's really gone out of his way for you." The high heels were back on my feet. Mike didn't mind bending down to wipe off the dirt, a moment that amazed everyone. I lazily yawned. The banquet hasn't started yet. "You all can go now, let me rest a bit." The crowd dispersed. I dropped my lazy demeanor and glanced at the moonlight outside the window. If the night doesn't come to rescue the princess, then she just runs off on her own. The villa was at its liveliest. Mike thought I'd accepted his proposal. He relaxed his guard. But seriously, how could he think that? 99 proposals, can they be answered again? Can the ones you've lost ever come back? I ruthlessly tore the cumbersome wedding dress up to my thighs barefoot. I climbed up the villa's backyard wall. Just one jump, and I'd never return to this gilded cage again. At that moment, I was free. I climbed the wall. A glimmer caught my attention. A tall man in black was there, cigarette between his fingers. The flickering light of his cigarette was like his dark, luminous eyes. Next to him was a hefty motorcycle. Jasper looked up at me. "Miss Monica." His gaze settled on my exposed thighs. "Wow, you're such a rebel." I pressed down my dress and bossed him around without hesitation. "Since you're here, catch me." He chuckled, tossing his cigarette aside. "Okay, you've spoken. How can I refuse?" He stood beneath the wall, arms open toward me. The moonlight shone even brighter. I leaped. He caught me securely. In a low voice, he teased, "You trust me so much." Aren't you afraid I wouldn't catch you? Nestled firmly in his arms, I looked up at the sky. See, the moonlight is beautiful. He glanced up at the moonlight and chuckled softly. Miss Monica, is this a confession? I withdrew my gaze, straightened my torn dress. His flirty voice came again, too hasty. I won't agree. I was taken aback, then smiled at him. Jasper, lend me your coat. He shrugged off his coat with one hand and offered it to me. Tossed a helmet over too. Wanna go for a ride? Looking at the helmet in my hand, I teased, aren't you afraid of Mike coming after you? He swung a long leg over the bike, gestured for me to get on. Miss Monica, the moonlight's romantic. It's a shame not to linger. The wind roared in my ears. Jasper rode the motorcycle through the whole city with me. No interruptions. It was all freedom. The bike roared past schools. Chris with a hangover stared with cold intent. His first love stood pitifully beside him. Chris's sidekick couldn't believe seeing me hugging Jasper's waist. The motorcycle whizzed by. Jasper wore a smug smile at the corner of his lips. Hold on tight, Miss Monica. I hung on tight, with no fear. Jasper, faster. The moonlight was extremely romantic. The bike sped up to an extreme pace. Mike caught up. My wedding dress fluttered in the moonlight. The crown fell, long curls swept by the wind. Clutching Jasper's waist, I asked, are you scared? His eyes were wild. I don't have the word fear in my dictionary. As a challenge, Jasper zoomed the bike right past Mike's Maybach. And I felt the rush of freedom. At that moment, there was unprecedented relaxation and joy. We drove far until reaching a mountaintop. He turned off the engine. We were closer to the moon. The light above felt within reach. Jasper, let me tell you a story. When I was 18, my family went bankrupt. I waited outside Mike's place all night just to ask him to save my dad. But he didn't help and broke off our engagement overnight. I begged everyone. In the end, I watched my dad die because no one helped before. Under my dad's protection, I acted like a spoiled princess. After bankruptcy, everyone pushed me down. Even Mike didn't want me. Amid the rushing wind, I looked at Jasper. You know, people like me, once they're down, have many who want me dead. Jasper lit a cigarette, his chiseled features flickered through the smoke. He looked intently at me. Do you trust me? What? The wind is loud. He took a deep drag. I said, follow me, and no one will dare bully you. Whether it's Chris or Mike, my family can handle it. I didn't answer. He pulled me close with one hand. How about a kiss? A full moon hung over the mountaintop. Romantic as ever. I leaned on Jasper's bike, turning to look at him. In all black, he was almost one with the moonlight. His eyes on me were profound. An engine roared nearby. Mike had caught up. Jasper dropped his cigarette, raised an eyebrow at me. Seemingly deliberate, he leaned in, barely touching his lips to my cheek. The moonlight's nice, Miss Monica, perfect for a kiss. I turned away. His cool kiss brushed my cheek. Not far off, Mike's Maybach was furiously trying to ascend the mountaintop. Do you like me? I asked. Jasper looked at me, surprised. He turned aside. Miss Monica, what's liking? If you don't know what liking is. I straddled the bike. I only kiss those who like me. Jasper released his hold on me. If I can protect you, isn't that enough? Why talk about liking? For the second time, I tilted my head, then turned on the bike when he wasn't looking. Through the chilly wind, I shouted, Jasper, liking me is the real reason you protect me. Mike's car approached. Jasper didn't mind. He raised an eyebrow, watching Mike from afar. He likes you too. Did he protect you? I started the engine, sneering. He couldn't protect me. I'm not about to fall for that reformed bad boy routine. Reformed bad boys should perish the moment they betray true feeling system. Not just about turning over a new leaf. As the Maybach drew in, I revved the bike. Charging straight toward it. The man behind the wheel locked eyes on me. In shattered white lace, on a black powerful bike. It carved a perfect arc under the moonlight. Two cars crashed into each other. Without hesitation, Mike turned the steering wheel and, at the last second, drove off the cliff. The way he looked at me was softer than ever. As if saying, I love you. But does love matter? Can it bring back everything I've lost? Watching everything fall apart, the moment he abandoned me. There would be no love between us again. I fired up my motorcycle again and followed. Mike's eyes widened with fear. But his fall was too fast. He couldn't do anything. I wanted him to never find peace, even in death. To watch the person he loved most die right before his eyes. To feel the pain I once felt. Jasper was yelling behind me, "Are you nuts?" I smiled. You know what? I won't fall for any man's system kicks in the moment a man feels sorry for me. As soon as he even thinks of betrayal, the system binds automatically. 97 left. Monica. As I fell rapidly, someone was calling my name. I stretched my body freely. Look at the beautiful moonlight. The mountain breeze was holding me. The white wedding dress fluttered in the wind. But I wasn't afraid at all. 3 years ago, when I was cornered with nowhere to go and thought of jumping, the moonlight was just as beautiful. But people are so cruel. Those people who wanted me dead. They loved me, used me, then abandoned me. Arrogant, laughable. Thinking they could play me like a toy. Merciless. If I felt even a flicker of emotion, that would be the end of me. But I never get moved. The beauty of the moonlight, it's a blessing. I closed my eyes, embracing the thrill of the quick descent. At the last second of my fall, a pair of huge white wings came to me under the moonlight. The man's cool hand held my waist, and as he lifted me, he folded his wings away. We landed smoothly. He waved his hand, and the wreckage on the ground vanished. I opened my eyes. He stood there in the moonlight, all dressed in white. Like the knight who once came to save me under the moon. He lifted his eyelids and looked at me, got brave enough to threaten me. The breeze blew. I walked over and held his hand. I knew you'd come. He gazed down at me, his eyes on my wedding dress. The moonlight flowing. I spun around. Does it look nice? A man strong as a god. Time stood still around him. A face like that of a fairy, so delicate and enchanting. The moment you feel anything, you'll lose everything, Monica. Do you love that man? Love? I stopped spinning. Looked at him, amused. Men mean nothing to me. He frowned. But you're not human. I added, then lifted my skirt, still barefoot. But everywhere I walked, flowers blossomed. He wouldn't let anything harm me. Always indulging me. Because he was shaped by my own hands, I lifted my skirt, throwing myself into his arms. See that? He held my waist, not letting me even smell the blood in the mountain breeze. When chasing a girl, no betrayal, true purity, and don't wait till it's too late to appreciate her. He wrapped his arms around my waist, his voice tender. Is that your demand of me? He patted my head with his big hand. His gaze was full of affection. That's a low bar. I hugged his neck happily. It's because you're too good to me, Mr. System. Many years ago, you appeared, saving the collapse of my world. Gave me a chance for revenge. I really like you, Mr. System.